Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's breakout session. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you to our four panelists for being here. So, the subject of our discussion today is greener districts. My name is Joe Peach, and I am the founder of This Big City, a social media organization who are a media partner with the New Cities Summit this year. So, greener districts, or urban sustainability, depending on how you look at it. Now, sustainability is a pretty fascinating but kind of overwhelming topic. There's no real agreed definition as to what sustainability is, and the challenge of creating a more sustainable planet can be quite overwhelming. So with that challenge, we kind of break sustainability down to a smaller level to make it easier to understand and easier to achieve. So sustainable cities and greener districts emphasizes the local, engaging local people in the discussion and making sustainability more achievable. Of course, even on a local level, there's still no easy answers and the challenges remain. That's why we have our four esteemed panelists joining us today to look at the challenges and the opportunities that greener districts present. So, to my far left, we have Clara Gaymard. She is the CEO of GE France and leader of GE International's Cities Initiative. And to my left, we have Carson, the CEO of C40 Cities. Then over to my far right, we have Masato Ito. Masato is the Deputy General Manager and Head of Sustainable Property Promotion Team at the Mitsui Trust Bank. And then to my right, Tijl. He is the Director General of the Physical Planning Department at the City of Amsterdam. Welcome, everybody, and thank you. Thank you. Jay will kick off the discussion, talking about, amongst other things, how cities are collaborating for sustainability. Jay, over to you.
Thanks, Joe. Good morning, everyone. As Joe said, my name is Carson. I'm the CEO of the C40. A quick little history on what C40 is for those of you who don't know, and I'll try to get through this quickly because I know we want to answer your questions and Joe's questions as much as we want to talk on about our presentation. But the C40 is an organization of megacities around the world, megacities and some leading affiliate cities. There are actually 59 cities in the C40, but we decided wisely, I think, to stop rebranding the organization as it got bigger and bigger. It started as the C8, founded in London, when Mayor Livingston said about almost 8 years ago now, recognized that cities could actually get a lot more done than national governments. National governments were doing essentially nothing in terms of greenhouse gas reduction, and cities were. And if we linked cities together around the world, the very foundation of this great conference, if we link cities together around the world, we could get a lot more done together by sharing best practices and teaching each other what we had learned, lessons learned from projects, programs, and policies that we have gotten done. So the C40, the chair of C40 is Mayor Bloomberg, and he who was my boss, became chair about 18 months ago and really set up a very data-driven approach to city action. So one of the first things that we did was a powers and policies report. Through that, we surveyed all of the cities in the C40 to find out. Our goal was to create an XY axis where we essentially could figure out what the carbon output of a city was and how much mayoral control there was over that particular area. The reason this is so exciting is that we found out that, one, we wanted to help mayors make decisions. If you, for instance, planting trees in a city, great for livability, not the greatest carbon reducer in the world. So if, let's say in terms of carbon, street trees were at a 1 in terms of its carbon output, and they were also at a 1 in terms of control, this is not what the mayor should be working on. If a mayor has control of his or her power generation facility, for instance, which is obviously your highest carbon output in your city, if you have control of that, that's exactly where you should be working. So it was to allow cities to sit down and say, look at the XY axis and say, this is a place where we should be working. One of the most exciting parts about this, and the reason that this is applicable for green districts, we discovered that of the carbon output in cities, and we're all at a cities conference, so I won't give you the greater population of cities and the fact that most carbon output is coming from cities, and that's going to increase as we move forward. But mayors have essentially 75% control over the greatest greenhouse gas production inside their cities, and the greatest nexus point of that is in the creation of a green district. So within a green district where you have the nexus of transport and waste and water and energy creation and energy efficiency, that can happen in a greener district. It's very exciting, and it's one of the reasons that in Melbourne about 6 weeks ago, we launched what we're calling our Urban Sustainability Initiative or Urban Sustainability Network, but it's essentially green districts or eco districts. We had 20 cities from around the world attend who are leaders in this field who've either made a lot of progress in this or who want to make progress by learning from other cities, which is, again, what we do at C40, linking cities together. So in a city like Portland or Seattle or Stockholm, who've made a lot of progress in this, a city like Los Angeles, which is where I'm from, a city that I was the deputy mayor of before taking this job, can learn a lot from that. So that's what we do as an organization, and I'm excited to talk to my colleagues on stage and answer your questions as we go forward. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, it's certainly good to hear about how cities are connected and enabled to collaborate. What about competition? Because competition can be quite a powerful driver. Should we actually be getting cities to compete with each other over who is the most sustainable?
This is one of the most exciting parts about linking cities together, is that there's never a room of mayors or senior city officials that I see get together where there isn't a lot of healthy competition that comes out of that room. So for a particular mayor, these are, after all, elected officials and politicians. They get reelected by delivering for their city. When they hear that Paris has implemented a bike share network that far surpasses what they have in their city, I had this happen to me in Copenhagen. Mayor Viragosas sat down with the mayor of Paris and said, learned about, and the mayor of Copenhagen, and learned about the bike share programs that they had in both of those cities, and came back and started a pilot program in the city of Los Angeles to launch a bike share network, which is about 6 months away from getting off the ground. So that was sheer competition. He felt like he was being outdone by other mayors, and he wanted to compete. So it's actually that's one of the helpful and organic seeding that comes from getting mayors and senior city officials together, is that we learn, but we also don't want to be outdone by another city. So there's a good bit of competition there. So.
Okay, thanks, Jay. So Hans, if I turn to you with a question, if we're finding that our city governments are having more power, is there actually a place for cities to work together to begin to tackle climate change if our national governments are letting us down in that arena?
Well, I think it's very important for cities to work together, but most important is just start in your own city. What you see is that there are always a lot of reports, a lot of discussions. There are always a big fight with vested interests to start something new. In my opinion, you shouldn't waste time doing that. Just start. Have an idea, just start. And it's important to identify the key drivers which makes you innovate a city. And thank you for the invitation, by the way, and good morning to you all. If I look at the past of Amsterdam, it's very interesting to see what were a few periods in time where Amsterdam became very rich and was the city had a lot of innovation. What were the key drivers? And if we can identify them, it would be interesting to know, can we use those drivers again in getting the city more greener? Because it's very important to get the city greener if we want to keep up our economy. And I think it's very important for the future. So if you look back to the history of Amsterdam, there's a very important period which is called the Golden Age in the 17th century, which was a period where Amsterdam became rich. We moved all over the world. But what a lot of people don't know is that we started the first government-backed bank. We started the first home-delivered newspaper. We invented the stock exchange. We invented the stock market. And that kind of innovations were only possible by a very close partnership of the government and business. So the first key factor is a very, very good cooperation between business and government. The second period, which was very prosperous for Amsterdam, was in the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century, where we got to renewal of our infrastructure. First, we dig a lot of canals, which was very important for the economy of Amsterdam. But second, the government invested in an airport, which was one of the first airports in Europe, Schiphol, which is now a very important airport in Europe. So investing in infrastructure, again, where the government take the lead, is a very important factor, in effect, a very important driver. So those two golden A's gives us important factors, key features on how we want to make our city green. Because what you need is infrastructure and connectivity. And nowadays it's fiber connectivity, which is very important also to make the cities greener. We need smart and persistent innovation, which can only work when there is a very good private and public partnership. And if you got those features and drivers together, I'm absolutely sure we can make our cities greener. We don't have a green district in Amsterdam. We're not investing in a green district. We want the entire city to become green. So we're not having special projects. We just do things which are for the entire city. We're getting a central heating system in to lower down the heating cost and also the carbon output. We're trying to get in as lot as possible windmills getting in to produce our own energy. The electric company is renewing its electric infrastructure, and we're making it a smart infrastructure. We're putting fiber in, and we're connecting those two together. So we have an area in the city where we can get in what we call smart meters, which makes it possible for people to know exactly what kind of gear in the house, how much electricity they use, which make them adopt their behavior. If you're asleep, we had it in our own house, and I discovered that just sleeping, we use 400 euros on electricity every year, which is absolutely crazy and makes you not sleep again. So if you know where it's from, where it comes from, you put out all the gear, you sleep very tightly, and it doesn't cost you a thing. But just knowing makes you adapt your behavior and really change something. So it's very important to have a group of people who want to change. It's very important to have some business who want to change, and it's very important to have some of the people in the government who want to change. Bring those three together, and don't have very much discussion. Don't have very big reports. Not necessary. Just start with a small group of people, and you can move mountains.
That sounds quite easy, but the reality is vested interest is a massive barrier.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time, because when you start a project, there's a lot of resistance. Let me give you one example. We started in 2003 to get fiber optic in, and we wanted an open data communication network, which was very, very important. And it took us 4 fights in court with the cable companies. It took us a long road through the European Union to get permission, because the opposite parties were saying it was stay date because the local government was getting into the fiber project. So it takes a lot of time, but you need a lot of people. You need a few people who are a bit crazy and want to do everything to make sure it will succeed. And if you have those people together, you need a lot of patience. So if you're patient and keep believing that you can do it and win, you can change a lot.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Do we have any comments from the other panelists at the moment? No? In that case, let's turn to the audience. Would anyone like to ask a question to Jay or Hans? We have a question at the back there.
I'm the Commissioner of Energy and Environment in the state of Connecticut. I wanted to challenge Jay a little bit.
Great.
You said, don't do tree planting. It's not where the big returns are, unlimited dollars investment. But there's 2 other elements, and I thought the last 2 presentations in the plenary session were remarkable for the way technology was addressing multiple problems at once. So you had the deputy mayor talking about the bus tracking device that was helping people find the bus, helping the managers get the buses to the stations better, providing air pollution data. So if you looked narrowly at the benefits and costs of that investment just as a bus tracker, it might not have paid, or just as a management tool, it might not have paid. But when you look at 3 or 4 or 5 elements, it starts to look a little different. And I would argue the same around tree planting. It's not a high payoff from a carbon dioxide sequestration point of view, but when you talk about quality of life, kind of improved urban feel, It captures, by the way, not only carbon but other pollutants. It suddenly might have a different cost benefit. So I only challenge you to the extent that you've got a greenhouse gas emissions agenda now, and the risk is that you pursue things or encourage people to pursue things that succeed on that front, but might not provide the broader perspective of what success looks like that perhaps you would have brought to bear as a deputy mayor.
Right. I'm really glad you asked that. First, let me just clarify. It's not that tree planting isn't something that cities should pursue. What we did in the Powers and Policies report was we looked at where mayors had control. So if you have no control, there are certain cities that literally have no control over their street trees. For whatever reason, because of federal government policies or state government policies, they don't have control over the areas where a city would be able to plant trees. My point was only if you don't have control over that, given the carbon reduction potential, don't fight in places that you don't control. Find somewhere else where you have if it's a 1 on a level of control and a 1 on carbon output, that's not where you should be spending your time. You should be spending your time on something where you have a high level of control. But I completely agree with you, both having been a deputy mayor and running this organization. There are a number of benefits to street trees, both in terms of livability and sustainability of a city. By the way, it drives up the economic value of the homes and buildings around there. It's a huge benefit. And there's another benefit of it, which we push cities to do it. Again, cities where they have control, right? If you're that city that doesn't have control of the 3 or 4 meters to the right or left of your road, and by the way, there are cities that don't bother with that because you have so much control over everything else. You have control over that actual road. So do something on the actual road. You have control over 6 meters to the right or left of that. Work in those areas. Just don't fight in the places where you don't have control because you actually have control over 75% of your greenhouse gas reducers. But there's another benefit that we say to cities who do have control over their ability to do tree planting. There's a huge political benefit to it. So when a mayor succeeds in a tree planting effort, we have a 1 million tree planting effort in the city of Los Angeles, a 1 million tree plan in the city of New York. When a mayor succeeds there, it's something that's a lot of what you're going to do in this area is ethereal and ephemeral, and it's very hard for your population to get their hands and heads around. Planting trees.
I actually had a question, which is for everyone. And again, you offered what didn't have the highest payoff, but what does? Each of you were thinking about sustainability. If you were to focus a mayor, and again, this is a lesson always told. What are the 1 or 2 things that you would most emphasize as the right way to produce sustainability? And again, I would not limit us to green districts. I think that's one approach. But if your goal is sustainability, where would you focus attention?
Any answers?
I would say the most important thing is to change the behavior of people and the way they think and the way they act. And that would result in a bit of different economy that we know nowadays. Let me give you one example. We all have a washing machine at home. And we buy a washing machine, and after, well, when we're lucky, 10 years, we throw it away, which is absolutely a waste of material, and we buy a new one. Why don't, and we have the ability as people to build a washing machine that goes on for 100 years. So why don't we buy develop machines which goes on for 100 years and length or higher washing hours? For instance, you buy 1,000 washing hours or 10,000 washing hours at the companies who produce the machines. Now, that kind of economy, that would really change and make the world more sustainable and would really gives us a good use of all the material we have. But to do that, we have to have a discussion on our economic system. We need to have a discussion on how we use the things we have in our home. We have to change a bit of our own behavior, and I think that is the biggest challenge and also the most difficult one.
A very short answer on that. Transportation, energy efficiency, and waste. Are those are the 3 areas where almost every mayor has control, and they're huge, both in terms of sustainability, livability, and greenhouse gas reduction.
Okay, there's plenty of time for more questions later, but right now we'll move on to Masato, who is going to talk about sustainable real estate. Over to you.
Yeah. This is Masato. Good morning, everyone. This is Masato Ito of the Sumitomo Trust Bank in Japan. I'm very honored to speak here. Thank you very much. And Please allow me to use my presentation file. And first, I'd like to talk about the breakdown of office buildings inventory by age. And as I showed on this page, about 30% of office buildings are completed before 1981, when the earthquake resistance was reinforced. So, and skyscrapers in that age are said to meet the current standard. So it means that more than 70% of office building in Japan would stand long use through proper maintenance and retrofitting. Next, I'd like to show the recent survey conducted by Mori Building. In the wake of the Great East Japan earthquake, Mori Building undertook this special edition of their questionnaire survey to obtain a grasp of its impact on the Tokyo office market. And they asked 3,400 companies headquartered in Tokyo, need 23 words, about office space demand, including future plans to lease new premises. And regarding the importance of an office in Tokyo, the survey shows that almost all respondents indicate that importance will remain unchanged, with 6% indicating it will increase. And then I'd like to talk about new approaches to financing greener buildings by showing the way to reflect added value of properties. The next two slides shows the idea of value-added green real estate. The graph on the left side presents conventional real estate and its net income and the expenses. The graph on the right shows those of greener properties. As for greener properties, the utilities and repair costs will decrease compared to those conventional real estate thanks to energy savings and improvement of durability. So it follows that net income increases. And if the total income increases by quality improvement, the net income will also increase. In this way, I think that greener properties have the potential for value-added qualities thanks to increases of net income. And next page, the graph of the next slide shows how capitalization rate of greener properties are different from those of conventional ones. When the durability of building increases, it is thought that the depreciation ratio reduces. In addition, I can express the value-added qualities as a risk premium reduction in a capitalization rate of real estate, which not be adversely affected by future taxation and regulation, thanks to the environmental nature of the property. And I believe the greener properties has a kind of image improvement effect thanks to the environmental consideration. In this way, I think that greener properties have the potential for value-added qualities by increasing net income and reducing the risk premium. Then I'd like to mention environmental metrics as another new approach. In order to inform environmental performance of properties, simple, comparable, and compatible metrics would be essential. That's why we are launching CASB for market promotion in Japan. CASB, Comprehensive Assessment System for Built Environmental Efficiency, is originally very elaborated schemes with over 100 items, and it's good for planners and contractors, but not good for investors. So we are launching such simple systems. It also aims to share common metrics in the world and in order to be understood by investors overseas. And last year, UNEP FI, UNEP Finance Initiative, property working group published an investor's perspective on environmental metrics for property. And our activity for launching very simple version of CASB was introduced on this publication. Investors who are taking environmental issues into consideration would require such concise systems. And I'd like to introduce some activities to promote, to help finance greener buildings. First case is an example of environmental rating loan. Companies respond to our questionnaire and we rate environmental activities in 6th rank. A company given an environmental rating in the top 4 ranks is provided with a preferential interest rate corresponding to its rank. It enables the company to execute environmental actions. And we also help finance green building by conducting architecture consulting. This is one example, Osaki Forest Building, which supported greener construction, and as a result, the building is subsidized as a project for installation of advanced CO2 reduction facilities and systems, which is one of the major subsidy systems in Japan. And we are aiming to increase the value of building and company through environmental friendliness. Next page is about Fujisawa Sustainable Smart Town. Last year, Fujisawa Sustainable Smart Town project was launched. The land is former industrial place owned by Panasonic, a major Japanese electric company. And the project is aiming to realize Panasonic's concept of a safe, secure, and sustainable smart town and to reduce CO2 emissions by 70%. We are planning to offer preferential rate loans for environmentally friendly houses. In addition, we are developing real estate assessment indices that facilitate market acceptance of environmentally conscious urban development as real estate value. And liquidation and development of contaminated land has been left unused is an important challenge. Also from point of view of revitalizing urban areas. So we continue to support the Contaminated Land Purchase and Revival Fund that was launched in 2006. And in conclusion, a lot of office buildings stand long use through proper maintenance and retrofitting in Japan. So important things are plainly showing the environmental performance of property, plainly showing the connection between environmental performance and property value, and evaluating added value of environmental friendly property and applying preferential rate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Masato. So tools like CASB, they're now in use in countries across the world, but sustainable real estate still remains a minority investment, really. So what kind of legislation changes could we put in place if we actually wanted to encourage more sustainable real estate development?
Oh, thank you for your good questions. Yeah, the most simple and symbolic policy change would be introduction of Tokyo emission trading scheme enforced by Tokyo Metropolitan Government, one of the members of C40. And it covers about 1,400 large buildings and factories, and 40% of carbon emissions of commercial sectors and industrial sectors. And the cap setting for the first compliance period between 2010 and 2014 is 6% on average and 8% for office buildings. And in the second compliance period, the current estimate of reduction rate is about 17%. So such action is spreading to neighboring areas such as Saitama Prefecture and Yokohama City. And Japanese government is also submitting the bills of the Basic Act on Global Warming Countermeasures And it also aims to establish cap and trade systems.
Okay, thank you, Masato. Clara, if we move on to you for your view on sustainable cities and greener districts.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to say to Hans that he forgot one of the main innovation that is giving a high quality of life of Amsterdam is the cheese. And I'm a French woman saying that to a Dutch. And yes, it's true that the competition is high between cities. We have seen that. We have made a survey in France to understand how the mayors understood what is the sustainable city. And what was very interesting in this survey is that when they asked the question, we asked them question if it was important. They say yes, it's important for not only for sustainability but also for the economic growth of my city. And when we asked them what it is about to have a sustainable city, they said, I don't know, or I don't know very well, or I don't have a clue, but I know this is important. And the third thing which was very interesting is that when they knew what it was about to sustainable city, they have nearly done it. And the two areas where they have done things, it's in waste, recycling waste. Nearly 96% of the cities, small or big in France, has done the recycling of waste. And the other thing is the lighting, because that they can understand that they can save money on that. So if you speak about cities, you see that the main target they have, and you have said it a little bit before, I agree with you, is mobility. How do you move people, traffic jam, don't spend 2 hours in going from your office to your house. The second is healthcare, and the third one is energy. But what you see in all those fields, first of all, cities are if there is one market in the world, it is the market, because it's where the growing population is going. 80% of the population will live in cities. The growing cities will be in emerging markets, so it means that 1.5 billion people more will live in cities, so it is their market. But the way they will grow and they will give the vital needs will be completely different than the way we are doing it today. Just take example, if you take mobility, it's, of course, you need tramways, you need trains, you need buses, and so on. But the way you will do it, it's about intermodal transportation. You and I, we will want a ticket we can buy on our cell phone that can bring us to a point A to B, giving us, if we have to take a bus and after a train, and with one ticket. So it's all about the way we will coordinate the software for that. It's the Internet of Things. If you take healthcare, we have built big hospitals with very high technology for very sophisticated people. And yes, we need that. But for most of the disease, we need access to everyone, every place in the world with simple tools and so on. And I encourage you to go and to see what we have done in Brazil, which is a suitcase where you can make the diagnostic of more than 45 disease in a small suitcase to go in the favelas in Brazil. So it's a kind of reverse innovation where you are building something which fits to the poor people, to the high range of population, but giving a diagnostic that you even in our developed countries we don't have when we go to our doctor. So, and if I take the last field, which is energy, of course we have a lot of debate to know if we need to have more renewable energy, if we have a nuclear, if we have a thermal energy. But the reality is there is the two ways to save energy is about distribution, how you distribute energy, because you can't storage the energy. So the better you distribute energy, the better you save money. And let me give you the example of the fact that we are here and you go to the office every day, and if in your contract your provider of energy knows when you go in and out, he will provide you the energy that you own, that your things, I mean your fridge, your computer needs to stay when you don't use them. So let's say only 1.5 kilowatts. And when you go home in the evening and you enter your apartment, he will provide you all the energy you need to use your tools. The difference is that because during the day he will provide you only 1.5 kilowatt, he can provide electricity to this room, to the hospital, to the school, and at the top of the hill, he will produce less energy. And that can make a substantial economy of energy. And this is really about understanding which are the real needs of the new cities. And when I'm speaking of the new cities, I'm not speaking about only the new cities that we're building all over the world, but also cities that we already know, the way that we are making the retrofit and so on. So we have the technology. The technology is there. But there are two issues. The first one is, in many cases, the technology is not mature. If you take electrical vehicle, I have an electrical car, I'm very proud of my electrical car, but you can drive only 120 kilometers. So it means that it's a new way to use the electrical car. You have to share it. You have to organize the way you use the car a different way. This is a new business model, and the business model is starting, but we don't know really what it will be. So let's take this example. If you take the solar panel, we know that the solar panel are not very performing now. So we will have a next generation of power panel or solar concentrated technology or thin panel. The technology is not completely mature. And we can continue with wind technology, with the CHP technology. All those technologies are existing, but they are not completely mature. And the other thing, which is the key issue, is that the business model is not existing already in many cases. And I will take, to conclude my introduction, an example in healthcare. We are already building, we all know that the future is not to go to the hospital, but to be cured at home, to be patient-centric. So we don't need to go to the hospital to make the diagnostic or to make the treatment and so on. That all that kind of thing can be by distance. And we have some of the tools, we have some of the data, we have also some of the product that you can have in home to make the control. But what we don't have is who pays. Because the one who will take the benefit of it is not the one that will pay for it. The one who will take the benefit of it is the hospital, because you have less people in the hospital. But you have a lot of countries where the hospital are paid by the numbers of patients they have received. So we have to change completely the business model to serve the needs the best way. And if you take the example of the cloud computing in healthcare, we have done that, for example, in France with the data system. So it means that now when you will go in a hospital in France and you will make a scanner or an IRM or whatever diagnostic you are making, instead of having the hospital recruiting engineers to manage the data system, they will download the imaging and they will pay per use. This is a win for the hospital because they don't need to hire people, which is nothing to do with the hospital, which are engineers and so on, and they save money. It's a win for the patient because you and me, we can go to our doctor, to our clinic, to our hospital, and they have the information and the data on all the imaging that concern yourself, so they can make a better treatment for you. It's also a win for the healthcare system because that saves money. Because of course you don't need to do a different treatment, duplicate the document and so on. And it's also a win for the science because collecting all those data gives a better view of where the diseases are, which are the causes and so on. So it helps the research and development and so on. So this is the new things where we are going in. It will make a revolution. We are in a phase where we are in an evolution of a revolution, and that will change the way we live in cities.
Okay. Thank you, Clara. So it's quite interesting whether it's solar panels.
I just want to add one thing, just to because one of my guy in my team told me that you know, the technology is amazing. Now we will have some button where to turn off the light or to which won't be anymore connected to any cable or any energy. Just the way you press the button give enough energy to say to the light to switch on or not. And the same with the keyboard. So the technology is amazing. The technology is there, just about to know it and to use it the proper way in the cities.
Thank you. Actually, that's quite an interesting point, because the way corporations are working, they are making our lifestyles easier and they're helping make cities more sustainable. But if we want greener districts, the corporations alone can't achieve that. We need to engage the citizenship, who have a very, very different approach, and they can bring something very different to the table. So is there a way for the citizens' contribution to complement the corporation's contribution?
I would say that you see that the citizen, they want to be smart consumer. And you look at the young generation, they are all taking care about that. You know, when we were 20 years old, what we wanted is to have a car. Now, and if we wanted to learn, or we had to buy books and so on. Now, the young generation, if they have a computer, they are at the center of the world, and they are the center of their world. So they can create, they can connect, they can do everything without any money. So, and they have the information for everything. So they are smart thinker, and they don't want to consume as we did, you know, in a stupid way, where we didn't know because we were blind. Now they don't want to be blind anymore. So I think the consumer are there, the technology is there. I would say there is a consciousness about the mayors and the city managers that there is a need there. It's about to happen. But as Hans was saying, it takes time. And what we see is that the city who has been pilot cities for already 20 years are succeeding there. But it takes time, because it's a long, long process to be successful.
Okay.
Well, may I add something?
Please.
I think it's very important to get people up front themselves. So put as much data possible for everyone. Make it open data. Give all the information. People will develop apps. Will innovate. Will do all kind of things we can't think of, and which will probably bring us a bit further.
Okay. So before we open up to questions for the whole panel, have we got any questions for Masato or Clara? Gentleman at the front.
I would like to contrast Mr. Ito's first slide with what we heard from Jonathan Wetzel this morning on the China initiative, in which he said the building life is 21 years for these buildings. And Mr. Ito was saying 70% of the buildings could be retrofitted. The most embedded energy is in the existing buildings. So to tear down buildings, I mean, I was really shocked by that, because I've spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe and in Russia where those apartments are falling apart and they're still being used. So if you don't, the Swiss have a saying, build it once. I mean, look at the buildings on Haussmann's Boulevard. What if they only had a 21-year life? So I think one thing we need to think about is, what do we have already? Make that better, retrofit it with whatever the new technologies are.
Yep.
I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And when you're building a new city, you should be thinking, build it once, rather than, well, we'll tear it down and we'll rejuvenate our economy with a whole lot of new jobs. But actually, retrofitting buildings creates more jobs than new buildings.
I do think build it once is possibly an idealistic idea for Tokyo, but in general, you might be right. Masato?
Yeah, I remind the number of 21 years. It is that was the duration of average duration of Japanese housings, especially for detached houses, and compared to about 50 years in England or European countries. So Japanese houses are said to be short in their life, but now it's rapidly changing. And I talked about the office buildings, mainly structured by reinforced forced concrete. That the normal duration is about 60 years or so. So so most of them are suitable for retrofitting and long use. So the problem left is for detached houses. But originally, Japanese houses are more than 100 years or thousands of years. So we are taught that we plant trees, grow trees, and when the life of the house comes, we cut the trees and use again. It's the sustainable way. So the basic way to keep housing in future is to keep long life for houses.
If I may, it's also a tradition of Japan because of earthquakes. So you made a house very light. So if you, I mean, if you look in Europe, most of the housing is 100 years, and it is the issue because we have to retrofit them, and they've been made in a way that is not the way we wanted to do them now. But you come to a point which I think is very important point because it comes to also a social point, is that it's the poor that pay the most, because the house they have are thin, and they have to pay, and don't have the good heat. They pay electrical bill for heat. So those are the one who pays the most for the energy that they need for normal life. So it comes to a social issue that the mayors and we take into account. How can we help them to retrofit the buildings where they are living so they can save money on the bills for energy? And that comes to something that is, again, a new business model. Which business model can we build with the city, with us, with the technology, and the people living in those apartments, so we can get the retrofit during and get the money in, let's say, 7 years to get the with the energy saving, and that needs strong policies to do that, which are not existing now.
Okay, thank you. Question from the gentleman at the front here. Could you introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, Hiro Kitagawa from Japan. Question for everyone on the stage, anyone on the stage. I think the confusion in the government side about sustainable cities or smart cities, it sounds like everyone is coming to the city and saying, hey, this is sustainable city. You know, solar panel, wind power, and smart apps kind of things. But, you know, I think the cities are different, you know, between cities are different. So do you have any idea how we should approach local government so that we can offer the best suitable solutions to that community, if you have any?
Jay, that sounds like a question for you.
Sure. Can I ask what you do for a living? So what's your job?
Sorry?
What is your job?
That's what I do.
Okay.
Is that question? Yes,
Sure.
does that answer your question?
Say what you do.
What do you
Which
do?
company?
Are you a spy?
I
It's okay if you are.
I think I have two things. One is a leadership. The mayor or governor.
Say that your title.
Oh,
You are
sorry.
city manager
Oh,
for.
city director for Japan, working for GE.
Okay. Got it.
Jay.
Okay. Perfect. Good. I think the most helpful way to work with a city, I would love to see if Hans agrees with me here, is to approach, putting my deputy mayor hat on. I would very often have companies who had already done all of the R&D for a project or a program, and they would show up and say, here's what you need. I work inside the city. I've been there for a long time. I live there. I know what I have the political capital to get through the city council. I know what my mayor's going to support. I know what the citizenry are going to support. One of the things that we found in our overall study of all of our cities is that 70%, and this is This is the lowest in terms of developing and the highest in terms of developed. 70% of cities have climate action or sustainability action plans. They already know what they want to do. Involve the city early on in your conversation. Don't show up with a fully baked, fully cooked product that you've put $100 million of R&D into and say, hey, Los Angeles, here's what you need. Hey, Connecticut, here's what you need. Cities and states and regions know what they need already. Involve the city in the process early on. The sad thing is that oftentimes companies would sit down with me and say, we've got a district, for instance, this is actually a real example. We have a district heating or cooling facility. It was about 10% off from what we actually needed from downtown. But unfortunately, and it would have been for downtown Los Angeles. Unfortunately, they came to me at the end of the process and said, here's what we can give you. And I said, unfortunately, we've got 2 huge stadiums and 3 hospitals there, so I won't bore you with the details, but it was off by just a little bit from what we needed, and because they hadn't involved me in the process and they showed up with a finished product, I was unable to use it. It would have been fantastic for downtown Los Angeles. And I hear from city managers and mayors and deputy mayors from around the world who wish that they were involved earlier in the process with companies who are really trying to help cities improve their sustainability through technological advances.
Okay, I believe we have a question from the gentleman there. No? Let's go back.
So my name is Ashish Mishra. I work with a company called Strategic Asia. We work predominantly in the emerging markets. And I used to work for Ken Livingstone, so I know all about C40. Isn't the real problem that it doesn't matter whether you have a green district if the city doesn't control the right to pollute by industry around the corner? And what I mean is that you have carbon trading where billions and billions of dollars of credit are being used by the banks to fund industry to go and pollute, whilst around the corner you have a district trying to become more green.
Mm-hmm.
So shouldn't the real answer be that you should stop the right to pollute, full stop, for industry?
Hans, do you want to address that as a government man?
Yeah, I agree, but the problem is that no mayor would say that because the economic forces are too strong, and I think important companies would say, well, then we'll leave your city or your district or your metropolitan area or whatever, and they would put pressure on the local government, and the local government would say, okay, we'll listen to what the big companies would do. So, although I agree, it wouldn't be a solution. So there has to be a smarter way to change things, not by revolutionary acts or regulation or whatever, but to have a very organic transformation to another kind of economy or another kind of society. We had the example of mobility, we had the example of making greener buildings. We didn't talk about the idea of why are we going to our work every day? Why isn't the work coming to us? Why go in a car every day to your work? Why don't you bring your work to your home? And when you have a very good data connection at home, you can do a lot of work at your home. And of course, it's necessary to meet other people. It's necessary to meet your colleagues. But you can do that in a very more relaxing way, not being in a traffic jam every day. So, but it needs a change in the head of the managers, because they want to see everybody in the office every day, because they want to be in control. You have to it has to have a change in the people themselves. If they have to be able to work at home. If they can't work at home, build an office near their home so they can walk or bike to a new offices. We started in Holland what we call Smart Work Center. We have around 100 now in Holland. And the idea is, don't go in your car, go and in a traffic jam to the office. Just go to the office around the corner. Do your work there for a day or 2 days or whatever, however long you want to take it.
Okay, can we turn to Clara now, who has something to
To
add?
answer on the industrial question, which is very important because we need industries. First of all, you have the regulation. So you have a lot of countries who has built a regulation where if you pollute, you pay. So you have a tax for polluting, and that help a lot of industries to change the way they produce. So, for example, if you look in water, 20 years ago, we are in water treatment. Our customer would ask us only to clean the water to come out of the process, because otherwise they would have to pay, because they would pollute. And now they are asking us, because the water has a cost, to recycle the water inside their own plants. So we can recycle about 95% of the water, and they always reuse the same water because we clean it inside the plant. And we do that also for energy and so on. So don't believe that the industrial company don't care about polluting. They care about it because of the legislation and also because of the cost. Because the day you take care about the way you pollute, you save money, because you will use less, you will consume less in energy and in water and so on. So it's not, killing your industry or having a green environment. And by matter of fact, if you look at a country like Germany, like France, or we have a lot of industries, and in Germany, industries are very close from cities, and some of those cities are has a high level of standard living, and also are not polluted. So
Jay has something he wants to add.
I think, unfortunately, I don't mean to be the pessimist here, but unfortunately, I don't think that the international treaty process, the efforts to sort of more or less ban pollution or ban pollution over a certain level, are going to bear fruit. There's an old saying, which is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We meet every year, very little happens. The exciting part about cities is that cities are actually doing things. Green districts aren't, I don't think there is a panacea to the issue of sustainability or greenhouse gas reduction. But green districts are certainly not the panacea, but they are one chunk in a toolbox that cities have, in addition to transportation and greater citywide energy efficiency and bike share and tree planting, and there are thousands of things that cities can do, each of which chip away a little bit at this problem, and not only reduce greenhouse gases, but make cities more livable and more sustainable.
Absolutely.
The reason that I think that we're here, the reason that C40 exists, the reason that there's so much focus on cities, by the way, the reason that GE and Siemens and Johnson Controls and Apple and Google and all these companies have created city-focused business units is because cities are actually really taking action on this. In a way that national governments haven't, and I worked in the national government for a long time. I don't think national governments will or can, and so we are.
Exactly.
Okay, we have a question.
Cities will save the world. I totally agree.
Okay, a question from the front here.
Yes, my name is Joan. This is on, I don't know if I need it. My name is Joan Fitzgerald. I'm director, I'm incoming dean of the School of Public Policy and Urban Affairs at Northeastern University in Boston. I'm working on a book on eco-districts, and I agree with your point that the goal should be for the whole city to be green, but I think one of the roles that they play is inspiring the public, but also serving as a test bed of what's possible in other parts of the city. So outside of, say, Hammarby Sjöstad in Stockholm that everyone knows about, in the Western Harbor in Malmö, in Hafen City, I'd like to hear more from you as well as other panelists on what you think the leading eco-districts are and what they're doing in their cities.
Okay.
Well, I could give you two examples of Amsterdam. There's a new, we developed a new area in the city on reclaimed land. It's called Eiburg, which I think is a very green district. We planned the area in a way. We take care of all the flora and the fauna. Really thought over what do the plants need, what do the animals need. We talked with the development companies of making the houses as energy neutral as possible, which can always be better, but it was a very good start. Try to get as much people on the bike as possible to go to their work into the city. So I think it's a very good example of, without calling it a green district and without putting the pressure on being the example of, just developing a new area, new part of the city, but with all the tools we had to make it as green as possible. That's one part. The other part is a very is a part that's called the Western Garden Cities. It's an area which was developed after the Second World War, which is renovated the last 10 years and will be renovated the next 10 years. There will be a new electricity grid in, together with a fiber project. So we make the connection between electricity and fiber optic and all the possibilities that will bring us in getting smart meters in, I mentioned before. So it's more in the older part of the city, not that old, but let's say the existing city, and where we try to be make it a bit greener, but again without calling it the green district.
So do we have any other examples from the rest of the world outside of Europe?
Sure.
Masato?
Yeah.
Masato?
So the goal would be to make our cities sustainable. So the first thing to do is to define what is sustainability and what is smart city. So there are many initiatives trying to launch a common metrics of sustainable city or sustainable or smart city. So it's a good news for us, and maybe some of ISO working group are launching to define sustainable city.
Mm-hmm.
So we could share common metrics and common identify, and at the same time we can think about the individual features of the city.
So the difficulty, of course, is if you spend all this time debating what is sustainability, you may actually be losing the time to make things more sustainable. Jay, did you have a comment?
Yeah, there are some exciting examples in North America. There's some exciting examples around the world, but in North America there are some great examples in Vancouver, in San Francisco, in Portland, in Seattle, even in Los Angeles. In a city the size of Los Angeles or New York, it is, because of power battles and a number of other things, very difficult to take this at an incredibly large scale. It's incredibly difficult to pass citywide ordinances. There's a very strong greater, greater, greener buildings. My friend named that, and it's like the worst name in the world. But it actually is a great policy in New York that was passed citywide. But there are some small budding eco districts in the works and being planned in New York. There are a couple in Los Angeles. The most successful in I don't want to give superlatives here and get myself in trouble with the other member cities, but Portland and Seattle are really in the vanguard in North America in terms of their multiple eco districts that are up and running, that are running at scale, that are now expanding, that are these test centers for new technologies, new policies, because it's a lot easier. Again, we're running governments and political institutions, and passing something for all 8 million people is much more difficult than saying, okay, in this 40-acre area or in these 8 blocks, we're going to do the following, and getting yourself an exception from this and that and the other, and trying a new water recapture plan, or trying a new transportation plan, or trying a feed-in tariff in that area to see if it works. So I'd love to talk to you more after with some more examples.
Let's take a question from the lady in the fourth row.
Selene Salomão de Carvalho from a small city in Brazil, actually. We're the second smallest town. And our wealth there is the mineral water. We have 9 different water fountains. And when it comes to the aspect of the green part, is a disaster in the city. It's right in the middle of the mountains. It's only 57 kilometers, square kilometers. And all the mountains that were supposed to be the place for the water to be recharged and then go to the river, and that turns into the mineral water with many, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of years. All those mountains are places of housings now. So the trees are all down. It's a completely disaster, ecological. When you look at the wealth of the city with the water. And as a normal, regular citizen, we in Brazil also don't have all the excitement with cities doing green here and there, and mayors, moving forward. They go backwards most of the time. And the idea is this is a very exciting place to be, but then we have to get the plane and go back to reality there. And in a small town like that, with only 43,000 people, what would be the way to start planning maybe 20 to 25 years from now to be able to have the green back and not lose the water? We actually already lost 2 fountains. The main park is going down because the water is going
Okay, so
down.
sustainable use of resources.
Yes, how do we plan that? It's not our number 1 task to do planning, but I would like to know, because we do have a idea of changing that around, and maybe in 20 years come back here and tell that it's looking real good now.
Okay. Any responses? Clara?
This is a difficult question because it comes about awareness. And the first thing is awareness, take conscious about the fact that short-term policy is killing the long-term life of a city. And by matter of fact, in companies, if we don't have long-term policies to build the technology of tomorrow and invest in R&D and so on, maybe we will be more profitable today, but not profitable for the long term. And it's what you are facing, And you are producing water for Brazilian people, and those people who drink the water don't care about the sustainability of the city. So what you're speaking about is about awareness. If the people are conscious about the fact that they are killing their future, this is the only way to do. And I think your example is really the example of we are facing all over the globe and the planet. And I want to share the example of a woman who is a sailor. I don't know if you know her. She's Ellen MacArthur, and she decided when she was 4 years old to be a sailor, and she has won a lot of race. And one day she came, and she's really an amazing woman, and one day after a race, she came on the ground, and she thought that she would live all her life on the sea. And she discovered that we were using the planet like it was like your water in the village, using it the planet, would be no scarcity. And she said, what can I do to show the way I'm living in a boat? Because in a boat it's limited area, and the planet is also a limited area. So how can we do that? And that comes to the idea that sustainability is not the only way to do it, because if you say to people to use less water, less energy, and so on, first of all, the population will grow to 5 billion to 9 billion, and it has a limit, because we will have 1 billion people taking the plane for the first time, so we need to build 3,000 new airplane, and more CO2 emission, and you can't refuse to the people that they will have to use water, transportation, and so on. So that comes to the idea of the recycling economy. And this is the point. This is the point. We as a company, you as city managers, we have to build an economy where when you build a washing machine, you can, of course, decide that you build a washing machine that will long 100 years. But you can also decide that you build a washing machine that will be 100% recyclable, because the needs that you will have in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, the consumer will want another kind of washing machine. So you have the rental way, or you have the industrial way, thinking how can I do from the very starting point a product which is completely recycling. And it's what we are doing in our technology, in the aircraft engines, and in healthcare and so on. We are thinking at the very beginning, how can we do recycling? So it's not an answer to your question, but it's just to say that without awareness, you don't do it.
Okay, we've got just a few minutes left, so can I have a question from the lady there, please?
Hi, I'm from Delhi, and so I had a comment, and I think it kind of flows into your comment right now, which is what do you do with aspiration? Because you know your example about how the youth are actually now with their computers at the center of the world, and you know with not so much. One of the things we're seeing, at least in South Asia, is that a lot of because the middle classes are obviously increasing, is the whole desire to own more for the first time in a whole generation. So people don't even think of cars; they just want to really save up and own a motorcycle and not have to take a bus. And so, for example, talking of green examples, I run a system in the New Delhi. I'm an environmentalist and working with a non-profit called Chintan. So we've organized all the people who pick trash to actually convert into green jobs and do waste recycling services for a municipality. But on the other hand, that doesn't really stop people from consuming more and more. So, we're actually recycling more and more and more and more. And I think there's that inherent tension. And I'm not saying, I don't think that the poor should be asked not to consume more. I think, but I'm wondering how do we think around this thought?
Okay.
If I may, if you go to Beijing or you go to Shanghai and you went there 20 years ago, you would have thousands and thousands of bicycles, and now you don't have any bicycle anymore, you have only cars. And the funny thing is that when you go to Paris or you go to Amsterdam and other city, all the people are taking back the bicycle, you know. Yes, people want to consume, and it goes to more cars, and they don't care about energy saving. But the reality is that if you take China or India, you will have more and more big cities, and the way you will give access to vital needs will have to change. It's not possible to give in Shanghai. They have going to the limit in Beijing also because the traffic jam. They are building motorways, big motorways, but in one day it's too much. So it comes to change the way you drive the policy shaping. Instead of making more broadband, more motorways, and so on, you think, what can I do so people are not traveling that way? As you said, how can I keep people close on their home and so on? So I think it's a transition of the development, but you see already cities in India and cities in China trying to build this way of development. And this is the future.
Okay, I'm afraid we haven't got any more time for questions, but just to conclude, I just wanted to ask you guys for one quick feedback. So a few days ago, we did a tweet chat with the New Cities Summit, and the topics varied wildly, but one thing kept coming up: the role of citizens in cities of the future. So if we fast forward to the future, let's imagine we've got greener districts, we've got sustainable cities. How might the future citizen be different to the citizen of today? Masato, quick comment?
A quick comment, yes. Yes. Yeah, city is very changeable. So, so we need to tracking. We need to keep tracking the change to be sustainable.
Okay,
yes.
Hans?
The citizens of the future would be more an interactive citizen in charge of its own consuming behavior, much more than it is now.
Okay, Jay?
I think citizens in future cities will have access to more data, will live closer together, live more efficiently, and will actually harness that aspiration you're talking about to making better, more efficient cities.
Okay, and Clara?
I would say that if I want to go for dinner, I can decide if I go by bicycle, by car, by bus, and I will see on my cell phone how much CO2 emission I do if I choose this traffic, this way to drive, and I will be not blind anymore, but I will be a conscious consumer, and I think it's what the citizen of the city will be.
Okay, so a green district could be a city where citizens are informed, engaged, and aware of their options in a dense urban environment. Thank you very much, everyone.